Did you know that the Holy Spirit can be sarcastic? Well, you thinking, what do you mean by that? Well, verse number 8 is sarcasm. We're in 1 Corinthians, the 4th chapter, verse number 8. The Holy Spirit is riding through the Apostle Paul. But verse number 8 it's a verse of sarcasm. Listen to what he says. You are already filled. You have already become rich. You have become kings without us. And indeed, I wish that you had become kings so that we also might reign with you. What's Paul saying? He's making 3 sarcastic statements here. You're already filled. Oh, you guys don't need any more. You got all the wisdom you need. You're already filled. And why is Paul doing this? Is he doing this to hurt their feelings? No. I don't believe Paul has an evil intent. I don't believe the Holy Spirit has an evil intent in saying this. So why the sarcasm? It doesn't feel good. Well, let me just say this to you. Everything the Holy Spirit says to you doesn't feel good. In other words, there's going to be times where the Holy Spirit's going to say, hey, what about that? And it's not going to feel good to you, but you know what? It's going to be for your benefit. You see, truth will set you free. It'll always set you free. If there's no truth in what's being said to you, you know what? You're going to remain in bondage. That's why we need to say to the person who's bound with homosexuality, we need to say to them, you're bound by homosexuality. Jesus wants to set you free. That's not hate speech. That's just telling the truth. And truth will always set you free. So Paul's saying here, he's saying, if you are already filled, you've got everything you need. The word filled means to be full to the brim. You don't have any more room to receive. And he's saying sarcastically. And then he says, and you have already become rich. Oh, there is no more that you can gain. You are already rich. There's no more room for you to improve. And again, he's saying it very sarcastically, not to hurt, not to destroy the Corinthians, but to try to get them to realize that they are not what they're pretending to be. And then he goes on. You have become kings without us. Oh, you are the top of the line. You are the highest position. You see, we need to understand that kings in those days was the very highest position that a person could attain. You're a king. You're the very highest position. And then he goes on and he says, and indeed I wish that you had become kings so that we also might reign with you. What's he saying? He's saying, you know what? If you're kings, you're reigning. You're reigning in life. And again, this is said with a bit of sarcasm because you know what? Those Corinthians know that they're not reigning. They're bound with all kinds of wickedness, all kinds of philosophies that are not producing life. And so Paul says, you know what? If you were kings, then we could be kings together. What's Paul saying? He's saying, I'm at the top. I've made it. Why? Because he's serving Jesus. You see, the greatest honor in all of our lives is to serve Jesus. It brings us up to a place where we become a royal priesthood, a holy nation. It brings us up to the place where we become royalty. Now, I know that bothers some of you, but that's the truth. Serving Jesus will bring you up. Now, the Corinthians, they're not doing that. They're serving everything else but Christ. Now, let's move on to the next verse. Verse number 9. For I think God has exhibited us as apostles last of all. What's Paul saying? He's saying God has exhibited us as apostles. He's placed us in a place, and that place is last of all. The Apostle Paul is beginning to talk about his suffering. He's beginning to talk about things that are very real. And he said, you know what? God has exhibited us. God is showing to us, or showing us as being the last of all. And he's talking about us not in God's perspective, but how God has exhibited us to the world. You know what? The world calls believers all kinds of nasty things. All kinds of things. Losers, haters. And you know what? We need to understand that is normal. Now, Paul goes on and he says this, men condemned to death. You know what? The Apostle Paul is constantly living under a condemnation of death. There's been times where he actually, there was one time that we know of for sure where Paul was stoned and left for dead. And then God raised him from the dead to continue his ministry. Paul's writing this from the city of Ephesus. The city of Ephesus was not filled with friendly people towards the Apostle Paul. There were still people that wanted to kill Paul. And so Paul says, we live under this condemnation of death. And then he goes on and he says, because we have become a spectacle to the world, both to the angels and to men. What is Paul saying? He's saying we've become a spectacle. This word spectacle, it's the Greek word theon, and we get our English word theater from it. We've become a public show to the world. We've become a public show to who? We've become a public show to the world system, to those that are in the world. And then he goes on and he explains who the world is. And he says both to angels and to men. How many of you know there's angels watching you right now? There's angels watching you. They're watching what you do. They're watching what you say. There's also men watching you right now. They're watching your actions. They're watching your attitudes. They're watching your words or hearing your words. And so the Apostle Paul says, you know what? We're being exhibited to the world. We're going to end here because my time is up. We're going to pick up next week in verse number 10. I hope you join us. But understand, it's very, very customary that you're watched by the world. They're watching every action, every word, every attitude. Think about that as you go through your weekend. Join us again on Monday as we continue this study in the book of 1 Corinthians.